What's up everybody and welcome back to another video. If you watched my last video, we took some pictures with the Galaxy Note 9, which has got a variable aperture, and we compared the difference between f1.5 and f2.4 and saw that f2.4 performed significantly better than the f1.5 aperture did. But I've got the raw files as well as the JPEGs from those very images, and I wanted to see what exactly the difference was between raw images that come out of a cell phone and the JPEGs, which Samsung has got proprietary processing that they do to the images to get the JPEGs. So let's see what exactly is improved and how much better the JPEGs look than the DNGs.
Alright, so first things first, let's talk about this weird artifacting on the side of the raw images here. If I go into develop, you can see that if I jump back and forth between two images, it changes up and changes color and pattern. So that means it is in fact in the raw data itself. But as you can see, jumping back and forth between two of the same images, you don't lose any of the information in JPEG. It's still there, but with processing raw images, you may lose that little section over there. So it's just something to keep in mind. I don't know if it's only with my Note or if other people are having the same problem, but I'm not too worried about it. All right, let's take a look at this here to see how it handles the out of focus blur areas. Right away, you can see that they have punched up the contrast, so there's more of a harsher gradient here, as opposed to the raw image, which is very, very soft, going from one color to the other. Especially right here, you can see where there's a very distinct line, where this here you can't really pick out any line, especially out this far. They've turned up the contrast and turned down the shadows enough that it pretty much hides all of the noise in the shadowy areas, but you can see that there's kind of a battle between sharpness and noise reduction going on here in the JPEG images. And that's particularly apparent here with this contrasty transition area here with the shadow. Moving over here, you can see how punchy the contrast is on these JPEGs, and that's really apparent here in the grip, where you can still see some leather texture in the raw file, but in the JPEG they have made the contrast so punchy that the grip has completely disappeared into a black hole. But the noise reduction seems to be doing well on the wall panels back here. And the sharpening is pretty intense, but it's not over the top. The wood grain still looks pretty nice. And again, this Sony camera is completely a black hole. Taking a look at f1.5, they actually did a really good job of recovering the hazy images, which you saw in my previous video, is this haziness was pretty standard for the f1.5 aperture. But here the JPEG seemed to have taken care of that really well. It struggled a little bit more on this K1000 down here, but it looks pretty good, especially on the front of this lens. All the haziness around the text is pretty much completely gone, but that's probably just a result of them cranking down the black so low that you can't see anything that's even kind of close to gray. At f2.4, you see a little bit more chromatic aberration because it's not just a big smeary mess, and you can see some reds here and some blues here, and that's pretty well taken care of almost entirely in the JPEG images, so they have addressed the chromatic aberration issue. This here was probably the worst image coming from the f1.5 aperture in my last video, but you can see that here in the middle it did a really good job of recovering the text on the lens again, but moving closer to the edges it just couldn't recover anything that was that significantly blurred. This here we're at f1.5 and the sharpening seems to be a little steep on this one, but it was adequate for getting this light meter back under control, as this was very blurry and very kind of hazy looking, but it really overdid it on the fake leather here. You can see how kind of grainy and hazy this looks. Really the softness of f1.5 is what warrants this much sharpening, but really the problem comes at f2.4, where it's sharp enough already and it's just made way overkill by applying this much sharpening after the fact on these JPEG images. You see how sharp the Pentax logo is and how you can see all of the leather texture, and on the JPEG side the Pentax logo looks like it's like very poorly done, super contrasty, like a white perimeter around the letters, and the leather background here is so over sharpened that it looks like it's more noisy and more grainy than it was before. So I think that they should probably have two different presets that are applied to these images depending on the aperture it was shot at, because the f2.4 images absolutely do not need this much sharpening, and it really kind of kills it for you when you're looking at images that are this sharpened.
Well, there you have it, guys. It was pretty standard fare from Samsung with the contrasty, saturated, super sharp images. They did a little bit of noise reduction, kind of smoothed out all the grainy noise that comes from a sensor this tiny. And they even did a really good job of recovering the f1.5 aperture kind of hazy blurriness that was in some of those images. So again, this was just a fun little video to show you guys some of the technicalities behind the cameras that we carry in our pockets every day. Hopefully you guys liked it. If you did, give it a like, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.